do companies that treat society responsibly, do they actually deliver better bottom line profits? But this is a really hard question. So how do you measure social responsibility? Well, I try to look at employee well-being. That's not the only dimension, right? There's customers and communities and the environment, but I looked at employees because I had some very good data on that. And this data was the list of the 100 best companies to work for in America. Now, there's other data sets that you can look at, so there's measures of, say, employee diversity and so forth, but those are relatively superficial, so it might be easy to manipulate that. It could be that there's a firm that doesn't care at all about diversity, but puts, say, a token minority or a token woman on the board just to check a box. Instead, what they try to do is they look at the grassroots, so they ask 57 questions to workers at all levels on quantitative factors like pay and benefits, but as I was discussing earlier with Paul, it's not just the quantitative stuff, it's also qualitative things, such as trust in management, pride in your jobs, alignment with the organization's mission, and camaraderie with your colleagues. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at, do these best companies to work for actually perform better, or are they just distracted from the bottom line? But if I found that these companies do well, how do I know it's due to employee well-being? Right, we see Google on this list. Maybe just the tech industry happened to do well and it was nothing to do with workers. So to isolate the effect of employee well-being, I controlled for what industry you're in, for size, growth opportunities, dividends, past performance, a whole host of other factors. And it's really well known that correlation does not imply causation. So I did further tests to suggest that it's employee well-being that causes better future performance rather than good performance leading to employees being engaged and happy. So it took 4 years to complete this study, to verify the robustness of the results and to rule out alternative explanations. So after all of this, what did I find? So I found that the 100 best companies to work for in America delivered stock returns that beat their peers by 2.3 to 3.8% per year every year over a 28-year period. So that's 89 to 184% compounded. So if you think of David's question, how can we improve productivity? Well, this is not just physical investment in building plant and equipment, but just getting more out of your workers. Simply put, companies that treat their workers better do better. But you might think, well, isn't it obvious, right, that companies that treat their workers better should do better? Why do we even need a study to show something like this? But in fact, it's not obvious, even though it might seem intuitive, because treating your workers well is costly. And indeed, many firms might think, well, let's invest in physical capital instead. Let's take Costco, for an example. Now, Costco, it paid its workers $20 per hour, people who were cashiers. The national average, when I did this study, was $11. And it gave 90% of its workers healthcare. Well, that's all expensive, and it drives finance people like me crazy. Right, so there was an equity analyst, quoted in Businessweek, saying Costco's management is focused on workers to the detriment of shareholders. Why would I want to buy a stock which pays its workers twice as much as it should do? Well, and that's the conventional view, is that any pound that you give to workers in the form of initiatives to engage them or to treat them better or to train them, that's a pound which is taken away from shareholders. Right? So the goal is just to treat your workers as harshly as possible and work them as hard as possible. Indeed, just like the best football managers are seen as ones who then squeeze that little bit extra out of their workers. But in contrast to that, I actually found that treating your workers well does help. Now, before my life of poverty, as a professor, I used to have a proper job. I used to work at Morgan Stanley. And this was my office, as you can see from the microwavable ready meals in the bottom corner. I was a junior analyst, at least when I started out. And one day in the office, the vice president catches me laughing. And he says, Alex, do not laugh when you're in the office. I'm banning you from laughter. And I said, why? And he said, well, it's because if you're too happy, the managing director will think that I'm not a good boss because I'm not working you hard enough. Right, so that is unfortunately a lot of the views of management, and that's why you want sort of a football manager who has the players sweating when they're coming off the field. But instead, what my findings are consistent with Costco's own CFO, Richard Galanti. What did he say? From day one, we've run the business that if we pay better than average, provide a salary that people can live on, have a positive environment and good benefits, we'll be able to hire better people, they'll stay longer, and be more efficient. Now, Thanksgiving is the biggest public holiday in the US, and everybody's free to go shopping. But not at Costco. Because Costco is closed on Thanksgiving, and it's closed on every public holiday, even though it would make tons of money by opening. Why? Because Costco believes that its workers should spend these holidays with their families. And that's not at the expense of profits. Costco's profits have topped $2 billion in each of the last 3 years. And while I look at employee well-being, there's other research looking at other dimensions of responsibility, such as customer satisfaction and environmental sustainability. And they also show that companies that deliver well on those dimensions also do well in the long term. And I think these findings are incredibly freeing, right? Because they suggest that management can act ethically without expecting a return, without doing these things for instrumental value. It's not that you invest in your workers in order to get higher profits in the future. It's not instrumental, but it's intrinsic. You want to invest in your workers because you'd like to create a healthy, enriching workplace, and then this leads to superior performance as a byproduct. So to close, let me go back to the original question that I asked. Why do businesses exist? To earn profit or to serve a purpose? For shareholders or for society? For customers, employees, and the environment? What is the answer from 28 years of research? The answer is yes. But how can you answer yes to a multiple choice question? Because it's not multiple choice. It's not either or. It's not zero sum. It's both and. Businesses exist to serve a purpose, and by doing so, and only by doing so, will they earn profits in the long run. To reach the land of profit, follow the road of purpose.